Hey, I am your host, Spen Harris. We have a lot to get to today. We have a very special guest coming on later in the show. But for now, we got a lot to talk about regarding this Brooklyn Nets basketball team. Off-season madness. So we are going to get started with the big trade announcement. The Nets trade Cam Johnson to the Denver Nuggets, and they receive back Michael Porter Jr., NBA champion, and a first-round pick in 2032. Why is this important? Well, the Nets have been trying to get off of Cam Johnson's contract for a while now. Really good player, but he won us too many games last season. We want a top 3 pick. They moved on, and guess what? They also got a first-round pick. I was hearing a lot of chatter that no team was willing to give up a first-round pick for Cam Johnson. Not only did they give up a first-round pick, they gave up a first-round pick in 2032. Nikola Jokic will be 36 years old by then. There is a strong chance that the Nuggets are not going to be great in 2031. That's just a guess. But good on the Nets, good on Sean Marks. What this does, you get a player in Michael Porter Jr. who's going to have a chance to work on his basketball resume and kind of build back his reputation a little bit. I think he was forgotten in Denver. I'm not sure that the NBA was recognizing him as a prolific scorer anymore. So he's going to go to Brooklyn, and hopefully a contender out there is gonna want to take a flyer on him after he kills it with the Brooklyn Nets, because he's going to be the starting small forward for this team. So that was interesting to see. I wasn't sure who the Nets would move on from first, Nick Claxton or Cam Johnson, but Denver gets a motivated Cam Johnson, had a really good run last year. In my opinion, consistently based on availability and production, Cam Johnson was the Nets' best player last season. Like I said, he won us a few more games than I think we needed to win, but overall, really nice trade for Sean Marks. Other Nets offseason news, the Nets have tendered Cam Thomas 1 year, $5.99 million qualifying offer. So he's a restricted free agent, but he'll most likely be back in Brooklyn for at least one more year. The Nets retain the best scorer in the organization since KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. So nice to see Cam back for hopefully at least one more year. And the Nets have also re-signed Zaire Williams and Day'Ron Sharpe, both to really team-friendly deals. Both players get 2 years, $12 million. Second year is a team option, I believe, for Zaire Williams. I'm not sure it is for Day'Ron Sharpe, but really happy with both these signings. You brought in Zaire Williams as kind of a low-risk, high-reward young player last year, and he proved to be a really, really strong player for this Brooklyn Nets team. Had some really nice moments, could hit the open three, athletic, could defend at a high level. There are some parts of his game that he needs to work on offensively, but excited he's here to stay. And then Day'Ron Sharpe, Nets fans love this guy. I don't know if there's another player on this team that works harder than Day'Ron Sharpe. He's a monster on the boards. Obviously, offensive game, not the best, but neither is Nick Claxton's, right? The Nets have 2 centers that are not known for their offense. So, not sure what the Nets are going to do with Nick Claxton. There's still a chance that they move on from him and trade him this offseason. I would like to see Day'Ron Sharpe get the opportunity to start for this Nets team, but we'll wait and see. Obviously, there are some players that the Nets weren't able to retain, so we say goodbye to Trendon Watford. He signs with the Philadelphia 76ers. Watford had some really, like Zaire Williams, had some really nice moments for the Nets. Point forward, skilled player. I really like the Sixers replacing Yabu with Trendon Watford. And then D'Angelo Russell, quick Nets stint, his second stint with the Brooklyn Nets. He now signs with the Dallas Mavericks. Makes sense. He wants to play for a contender. They're out Kyrie Irving for a little bit. So following that pattern of Nets guards going to Dallas, D'Angelo Russell does it. It was Spencer Dinwiddie. It was Kyrie Irving. It was Devin Harris. The list goes on and on. Now D'Lo is in Dallas. So we say goodbye and thank you to Trendon Watford. Thank you to D'Angelo Russell. And a big thank you to Cam Johnson. I don't think that Nets fans, when we made that trade for Mikal and Cam Johnson, thought that Nets fans would be more appreciative of the services of Cam Johnson than they were of Mikal Bridges. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And Cam Johnson had a really nice year last year. So I salute all three of those former Nets. Now, if I'm the general manager and you want to end this offseason perfectly, what I would recommend Sean Marks do, trade Nick Claxton, get a future first-round pick, and if you want to get back a player that is just a salary filler, I don't care who it is, but move Nick Claxton for a first-round pick. Obviously, we drafted Danny Wolf. We have Day'Ron Sharpe. We have some big men. I've seen everything I need to see from Nick Claxton. I don't think he is a future piece in this organization, so please move him, get a first-round pick. And then there is one player out there. I spoke to Mike Biseglia about this, I think it was last week, but I've seen Benedict Matherin's name in the media, potentially being on the trade block for Indiana. Obviously, shit is going wild for Indiana right now. No Halliburton to start the season. They lose Miles Turner in free agency. He goes to the Milwaukee Bucks. Kind of scrambling right now. Wouldn't hate a deal if you're the Brooklyn Nets to bring in Benedict Mathurin. He's still 23 years old. You saw what he did in the finals. He's a stone-cold killer if you give him the ball. I think he is the perfect fit alongside this very young Nets team. So that's how I would end the offseason. Trade Nick Claxton for a first, somehow acquire Benedict Mathurin. If you have to move on from Nick Claxton and or Cam Thomas, I'm okay with that. Yes, I said I'm okay with moving on from Cam Thomas. I understand he is the best scorer on the Brooklyn Nets, but what we're building is a little bit bigger than scoring. We're building a culture with these young guys. Not saying Cam Thomas doesn't fit. I just like Benedict Mathurin's fit more. All right. We covered the Nets offseason in about 6 minutes. Now we're going to get to the Nets draft. I haven't had a chance to talk about it, but they had 5 first-round picks. They used all 5 of them. We'll start at number 8. They kind of shocked the world, and they select Jaeger Demon out of BYU. Didn't hate the pick. I've seen some highlights of this kid. I watched little BYU. I have some friends who are very close to this BYU basketball team. This kid has a lot of promise. Okay, he's an international player. He played 1 year at BYU, but there are some traits that the Nets front office saw in this kid that made him a no-brainer at 8 for them. And I will say that I trust the scouting department of the Brooklyn Nets. I trust Sean Marks and the decision makers in that organization more than I trust ESPN rankings, more than I trust mock drafts, more than I trust the average casual fan on Twitter. So I wasn't one of the Nets fans, and there were many who freaked out over this pick, okay? This Nets team is not meant to be good this year, and probably the year after that. If you can develop Jaeger Demon into a serious passing, scoring threat in this league, then he was worth it at number 8. Second pick in the first, number 19, the Nets. They select another ball handler. Now the thing with Demon is he can be a point guard, but he's not a point guard. He's really more of a point forward. They take Nolan Traore, the fast, speedy point guard out of France. A lot of people like this kid. Before the season, he was mocked to go top 5. Obviously, with the way the college basketball season played out, he dropped a lot. But I really like this pick. As Jordy Fernandez said, he is the fastest guy in this draft, and he is someone who can really jumpstart this Nets team, push the pace, get guys involved, has a high IQ. So right off the bat, you can kind of see the trend the Nets are going. Jaeger Demon, Nolan Traore, international players with extremely high basketball IQ, young guys, but both not known for their shooting. They both had down shooting years last year. Okay. We get to pick number 22, Drake Powell out of North Carolina. 3-and-D guy, one of the best athletes in the draft, could be a lockdown defender. A lot of potential for this kid. I don't think he got as much opportunity as he would have liked at UNC. He talked about it at the press conference. But I like the change up because you just pick 2 ball handlers who can't shoot. So you take a guy who's a proven 3-point shooter, who's a proven defender in college. That was the pick at number 22, Drake Powell. 2 more picks in the first round. Number 26, Ben Suraf out of Israel, point guard. Now, I'm going to be honest. Don't know a lot about Ben Saraf. We are bringing on a reporter from the Sports Rabbi in Israel, someone who covered Ben Saraf's game very closely. We'll bring him on in a little bit. But this one was a head scratcher just because you had already taken Traore and you took Demon, who are both ball handlers. So I didn't understand the logic. And that's not a knock on Ben Saraf. He could be a great player. And like I said, we're going to learn more about him in a little bit. But to take 3 ball handlers with 3 out of your 4 first-round picks, I just wasn't sure of the strategy. But again, I'm not in the Nets scouting department. They're paid a lot of money to make these decisions, and I have faith in them. And then at 27, right after Ben Saraf, they take Danny Wolf, the big man out of Michigan. I love this pick. In terms of value, I think this was one of the better picks of the first round. Multifaceted big man who can pass the ball. We saw him shine in the NCAA tournament. Really high basketball IQ. And hey, as a Nets fan who happens to be Jewish, Ben Saraf, Danny Wolf, you draft two Jewish players back to back. I freaking love it. So really, really happy with 4 out of 5 picks. But like I said, Ben Saraf can turn into a great NBA player. I just don't know enough about his game. So that's my draft breakdown. I understand fans wanted Marks to trade up for Ace Bailey or Jeremiah Fears. They wanted to draft Kaman Maluak at 8, but the Nets came into this draft with a plan. They weren't going to sacrifice any of their picks. They had these guys circled. And here's what I'll say to Nets fans who were super upset after the draft. Whether you hate or love Sean Marks, and I actually think that Sean Marks probably should have lost his job after he traded away Kevin Durant, because that was admitting failure of the big 3. So for me, if you were ever going to fire Sean Marks, it should have been when he traded Kevin Durant that offseason. But you can't sit here and say you know for sure that this was a bad draft. You have to give him at least 2 years. You have to let some of these players develop. You know what? In 2 years, you want to say this was a shit draft because none of these guys are making names for themselves in the NBA? Then fine. But if he hits on 3 out of 5 of these first-round picks and they stick with the Nets organization and they sign second contracts and maybe one of them or 2 of them are all-stars. And again, remember, the Nets have draft picks next season, first-round picks. So they're probably going to, hopefully, fingers crossed, be in the top 3, top 5. You can't say fire Sean Marks until we've seen a chance for these players to develop. Nobody on social media is a draft expert. Nobody is keeping tabs on these international players like our front office has. So that is my take on that. Okay. We have a very special. Oh, and by the way, Nick's not with us today. He was busy this week. He'll be back next week. That's why I'm solo hosting. But I'm not by myself because we are now joined by a very, very special guest, Moshe Halickman. Moshe is a basketball journalist for the Sports Rabbi, a publication covering basketball in the state of Israel. And Moshe has specifically covered Ben Saraf, one of the newest Brooklyn Nets draft picks, very closely for the past 5 years. Moshe, welcome to Spenny and the Nets. Thank you for coming on.
So first of all, thanks for having me on, Spen. And I'm really looking forward to speak about Ben Saraf. And that's a fun fact that you said that you're Jewish. You're going to love Ben Saraf and also Danny Wolf, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm excited. And you know, I think for me, fans will get upset when a player who's unknown is drafted, right? Because a lot of these guys are watching college hoops all year. They're not watching in Germany. They're not watching the teams that Ben Saraf's been playing on, but you have. So I guess my first question to you is, prior to the draft, did you have any idea where you thought Ben might be picked? Did you think it would be late first round? Did you think it would be early second round? What were you hearing in terms of the buzz?
So in Israel, the big question was really, would Ben Saraf be picked in the first round or would it be in the second round? And which that wouldn't have been good because it means he doesn't have a guaranteed NBA contract. But there was a belief that definitely with the Brooklyn Nets having 5 picks in the first round, that Ben Saraf may be picked in one of those picks, which happened at the end. And really, people in Israel thought that Brooklyn Nets would be the best place for Ben Saraf. So everything really worked out, and getting selected at 26 really shows that Brooklyn Nets believed in him, and Sean Marks told him that he'll pick him in the draft. That's what Ben Saraf said after he got drafted. So I think this is just great for Ben Saraf. And we came into the draft knowing that it may be a 50% happening, being selected in the first round, or 50% being in the second round. And the luck played for Ben. But I think it shows that the Brooklyn Nets really wanted to select him in this draft, and the second they had the opportunity, they did it. So the chances were probably higher than 50%.
Why do you think that Brooklyn was a preferred destination for Ben Saraf? Why did he want to play in Brooklyn?
So definitely the Jewish community is something big, the location in New York, but also basketball-wise, going to a team that would give him the keys. He's coming with experience. He's maybe the most NBA-ready player out of the players drafted, because I got to be honest and say I didn't watch all of the players drafted because they played in college, some of them, but out of the ones coming from Europe, he has 3 years of professional ball under his belt, excellent campaigns with Israel's young national teams in European championships. And really, the last season he played in Germany with Ulm and had a great season in European competition like the Euro Cup, which is the second best in Europe after the Euro League, and the German League is one of the best leagues in Europe. And Ben Saraf really had excellent seasons so far. He led teams to wins, and many times these teams were underdog teams. But if it was last season with Ironi Kiryat Ata, a very small team in the first Israeli division, he was able to lead them to semifinals State Cup, and not only that, to semifinals of the league playoffs, even beating Hapoel Tel Aviv in game one of semifinals. Hapoel Tel Aviv, one of the up-and-coming teams in Europe. At the end, Kiryat Ata lost that series because of the depth of Hapoel Tel Aviv, but still, it was a huge success. He was Rising Star of the Year, and in the last year with Ulm, everything connected. He was just a few possessions away from winning the German championship against Bayern Munich, and maybe a few sleeping hours away out of winning the championship, because we saw how tough it was game 5 after he was drafted.
Yeah, you and I messaged back and forth about this. So obviously he gets drafted on Thursday night, and he has to fly back to where was he during the draft?
So during the draft, he was in Germany.
He was in Germany, but he wasn't sleeping because of the time difference.
No, he was up watching the draft. You know, it's the biggest moment a player may have in their career. I mean, we hope he's going to have much bigger moments, but definitely at this stage of his career, it's a huge moment. And for sure, for Israeli basketball, when an Israeli player gets drafted, it's something that goes beyond sports. So far, there were just 2 Israelis that were selected in the first round of the NBA draft, Omri Caspi and Deni Avdia, and those were huge events. And Ben Saraf really had a once-in-a-lifetime event, but he did show his commitment, first of all, to the game of basketball and to the team that gave him the keys, Ulm, by staying in Germany to play the final series, staying in game 4, and then also for game 5 after the draft. And, you know, as much as he wanted to be in the draft and shake Adam Silver's hand, it wasn't guaranteed that he would be selected first round, and B, when there's a basketball game, when there's a finals against Bayern Munich, a chance also to maybe get a lifetime achievement of winning the German championship, then Ben Saraf wanted, first of all, to play and really show his commitment. And I think it's something that's much appreciated, also in Israel, also in the United States, also in the whole world of basketball.
Yeah, so a few things you said there really stuck out to me. Number one, Israeli player getting drafted in the NBA. There's only been 2 guys before him. That's amazing. I love that. And you know, me being a Jewish American person, I was very happy to see Brooklyn go that route and draft Ben Saraf. Not because he's from Israel, but because it's well earned, and he happens to be from Israel. So I love to see that. To Nets fans who tuned into that game, the championship game that Moshe is referring to, in which Ben didn't have his best game, you have to realize he barely slept, and he just got drafted. His dream came true, but like Moshe said, he stayed committed and he showed up, and at least he put on the jersey, he laced him up, and he went out there. The other guy who was, I guess I'm not. You got to tell me which team did Noah Esenge play for?
Yeah, so he also played for Ulm. Yeah.
He played for Ulm, but he missed the game. He chose to go to the United States and be at the draft, correct?
Yeah, he missed game 4-2 to be in all of the pre-draft events and the green room, which, again, many people understand because, like we say, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, but Ben Saraf really wanted to give back to his team. And even though Ulm knew that this may happen, as the German league didn't change the dates of a final series, then I think the expectation from the players was to stay, or at least the hope. And Ben did that, and Noah decided to go to the draft, which, again, there's definitely legitimate reasons to that, but I think it just made Ben Saraf's decision even more well-respected.
So what Moshe and I are saying to all the Nets fans who watched that last championship game in which lost, do not judge Ben Saraf on that performance alone. Ben Saraf has had a really nice stint with Ulm. He's proven himself, and there's a reason that the Brooklyn Nets drafted him 26 overall in the first round. So, Moshe, that brings me to my next question. And like I've mentioned numerous times, a lot of Nets fans are unfamiliar with Ben Saraf's game. So, kind of a simple but complex question to you. What kind of player are the Brooklyn Nets getting in Ben Saraf?
So first of all, it connects to what we said, that he already played 3 seasons of professional ball. So he brings a lot of maturity to his game. Definitely as a point guard, he's a natural leader. You know, he would shake someone's hand if he just did a mistake or something like that, you know, cheer up the teammates. And he's an excellent passer. It can be a one-hand pass with his left hand. He could pass it out to someone to shoot a free, and even pass inside to the paint with a no-look pass. It's really amazing some passes he could give, passing all of the traffic there. And another big advantage he has is mid-range jumpers. Sometimes you may see him force that shot, but it's a shot that not many players have, and definitely in the NBA, that's a big advantage Ben Saraf has. He's also very strong at driving to the basket, drawing out fouls, especially with his left hand. He did improve his right hand, which may have been a bit of a misadvantage in the past, but obviously he mainly plays with his left hand, but the right hand is something he can use. He does really need to improve his three-point shot, but I'm not too worried about it. We saw an Israeli player like Deni Avdia have a tough time at the start of his career with that, and then he went to train with Adam Filippi, a well-respected coach, and we saw his shot really improve in the last 2 years, and today there's no question marks about Deni Avdia's shot. And also Ben Saraf's a very good defender in my opinion, or at least definitely not a problem in defense. He could get his hands on steals. He could also give a chase down block, and also that connects to athleticism. He has the ability to steal a ball on one side of the court and run all the way to a dunk on the other side. So it's a really fun player to watch that gives a lot on both sides of the court.
Yeah, I think we'll tend to see Ben Saraf, and this is just a guess, but we'll probably see him a little bit more in Long Island this year, being that 4th out of 5th pick. I'm assuming him and Danny Wolf will spend their fair share of time with the Long Island Nets, which is it's the affiliate of the Brooklyn Nets, sort of their what is it now? It's the G League, so it's their G League team. Do you think it will be tough for Ben to make a name for himself in Brooklyn, playing the same position as Nolan Traore, being a ball handler like Demon, do you think it'll be tough for him to find playing time with this Nets team?
So I think the big question mark is really what's the role that Jordi Fernandez, the head coach, is going to give him. We don't know, but I think he's going to compete in practices with Demon and Traore, and I think whoever would be the best, that would be the guy that the coach would go with, and it doesn't matter if you were selected 8th. Obviously, the club would want to give Demon a big role, but from what I hear, he could also play the 3. So obviously, whoever would be the best in practices and would really show that he's built to lead the team as early as he can, then I think that's the guy that would get the keys. But if I saw Nolan Traore play against Ben Saraf last summer, and I can say that Ben Saraf definitely doesn't fall in compared to Nolan. I mean, Nolan's super talented. He had a crazy dunk in that game, Israel U18 against France U18 in the European Championship quarterfinals. But Ben Saraf and Israel won the game, and Nolan Traore had many turnovers. So obviously it's just one game, but Ben Saraf in that whole tournament showed he's a level above all of the players. He was MVP with over 28 points per game. He was as good that he was selected MVP, even though the team Israel made it to the semifinals, but didn't go on the podium. And that was something historic that didn't happen for many years, that a player from a team that didn't make the podium wins the MVP of the tournament. He was obviously the top scorer. He had like 4 steals per game, two 40-point games. In one of them against Serbia, he had what looked like a winning basket in the end of a first overtime in the semifinals, but at the end, Serbia were able to come back. He had like 8 steals in that game. So he's just a player that could really go off for big nights. And I won't be surprised at all if maybe he'll turn out to be the first point guard. Maybe not as early, but in the long term, it could definitely happen. Would he maybe need to play the G League? It can be, but I think it's really early to know what would happen exactly. Personally, I'm not going too far with expectations from his first season. I think it may take him time getting into the NBA, and it would be unfair to expect him to score in double figures or even close to that. If he does, it's amazing and it's above all expectations. But I think, first of all, he'll just want to be part of a rotation and from there play up as time goes.
Listen, you're getting me very excited about Ben Saraf coming to Brooklyn. All Nets fans listening right now are getting excited. They had a press conference today, the Nets did. Jordi Fernandez talked about, on playing all 5 rookies. He said they're going to have to earn it. It's going to be my decision to put 5 guys on the court. Most likely the Nets are going to have a 10-man rotation and go through the process. So, listen, Ben Saraf is going to have his fair share of opportunities. Fernandez continued to say they want to play with pace. In my opinion, we have the fastest guy in the draft in Traore. We have a lot of playmaking. All these guys can really pass. It helps when you have not just primary ball handlers, but also secondary ball handlers, and all these guys can do it. So based on Coach Fernandez's quotes, it sounds like Ben Saraf is going to have some opportunity to play with the club this year. And like you said, to expect so much out of a rookie coming into a class with 4 other rookies, I think this year is going to be more about development. It's going to be more about, is Ben Saraf showing glimpses of things on the NBA court that he can build on and become a real player on this Nets team for the future. And in terms of what you said about Traore and Ben Saraf, listen, he was only 7 picks after Traore. Like, Traore was 19, Ben Saraf was 26. That's not too far off. So it shows you that the Nets value these guys pretty close together.
Yes, and if you look back a year ago, so like you mentioned, Nolan Traore was like maybe a top 5 pick, and Ben Saraf, it took time. He needed to have that huge European championship, but the second he had it, there were some people that saw him as the top 10 pick, and I don't even think Traore was above him at the time. So maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But like you say, they're around the same level. Traore played with Saint-Quentin from France in Basketball Champions League, the European stage, while Saraf played in the Euro Cup, which is named a bit better competition in Europe. So I think both of them are really around the same level, plus minus, and it would be really interesting to see how this plays out.
I'm very excited. He's going to wear number 77 for the Nets, Ben Saraf will. And in terms of the reception that he has gotten since arriving in Brooklyn, Moshe, you mentioned the Jewish community. Ben Saraf said, I'm getting a lot of love from the Jewish community here. I appreciate all the love that I'm getting in the street and from the fans. So obviously a nice start to Ben Saraf's career in Brooklyn. Summer League is right around the corner. One more question for you. Are you going to continue to cover Ben Saraf now that he's a Brooklyn Net?
So for sure, I have to say that I'm covering Ben Saraf since the summer of 2021, and he had a European Challenger under-16 tournament. Around that tournament, it was the first time I really heard about him, and a European scout sent me a message about him, and he's like, the Ben Saraf show is about to start, and he gave a nice tournament because it was during COVID. Then it wasn't the European Championship, it was just the European Challenger. But then I continued following him from there, and mainly summer of 2022 is when I understood how good Ben Saraf is. European Championship, under 16. If the summer before he played as a 15-year-old in the U16, then in 2022 he was already 16 years old, and he was the top scorer of the tournament with around 24 points per game, and he was named to the starting five of the tournament. In the round of 16 against Serbia, which Israel weren't favorites, then he gave a huge game of 28 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. That's the moment I understood that the second he starts his professional career, he was signed before the tournament by Elitzur Netanya from the second division in Israel, then I'm going to want to watch him from the start. And really, second division, his first game wasn't good. It was tough. The second game came and he was already excellent. And from there, he was rising star of the season, second division, and sixth man of the year, a player that almost took the team up a division. They were one win away from that. And from there, it's history, really. So I'm definitely going to continue covering Ben Saraf also when he's in the NBA, and I can't look forward to it, and hopefully to make a trip to Brooklyn. I can say that I covered Deni Avdia when he played with the Washington Wizards, so I'm definitely looking forward to cover Ben Saraf in the NBA.
Well, when you come to Brooklyn, we'll have to get together for a nice meal and watch the Nets game. Another quote from Ben Saraf today on being the third point guard drafted by Brooklyn, although Demon is, like we talked about, a point forward hybrid. I think we can all play several positions, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm super excited to share the court with those guys. I think it's going to be amazing. So while fans might have this sort of fear that, hey, you got too many ball handlers, it doesn't sound like Coach Fernandez, Ben Saraf, Traore, or Demon are overly concerned with that. It sounds like everyone just wants to get to work. And the other thing I thought was interesting is Ben Saraf mentioned, want to shout out the Sports Rabbi for this quote. In terms of Danny Wolf, me and Danny had 2 practices together in the U20 national team. He's talking about Israel. So very cool, good vibes all around this Nets team. I'm excited for this young core to get started. Moshe, do you have anything you'd like to promote to the listeners out there before we end the show?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks so much for having me on. And you could find me at Mo Blue Line on Twitter and our page at The Sports Rabbi. We'll have a lot of content about Ben Saraf. And over the years, we had all kinds of articles. I mainly do the Hebrew site, but we made sure to have all kinds of English articles. And Josh Halickman, The Sports Rabbi, also writes a lot about Ben Saraf. I have a whole profile piece about Ben Saraf. You could find it on my Twitter. Who is Ben Saraf? It was made last summer, really around, I don't even know how many words, around 5,000. Anything you need to know about Ben Saraf up to the summer of 2024 is in there. So really, I can't wait to see how his NBA career would go. And also on the YouTube Sports Rabbi channel, you could find his initial reaction to getting drafted, him and his family in Germany. We put up the video. It's really exciting times.
By the way, I read the article. I thought it was an awesome piece. It made me learn a lot about who Ben Saraf is, his character, where he comes from, his family, what he went through to get to this point. And you know, it kind of shows, like I mentioned a bunch of times, fans don't know who he is. They don't understand where he came from, his path to this point. So if you read Moshe's article, it's really insightful, and you'll understand the grit and the grind that this dude Ben Saraf has. So Moshe, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, when you're in Brooklyn, please let me know. Me and my brother Nick, who's a co-host of the show, we'd love to get together, watch a Nets game. Thanks to everyone out there for listening to Spenny and the Nets, episode 228, and we will see you guys again next week.
Thanks so much, and can't wait to